You hear it all the time. When down insulation gets wet, it loses its ability to insulate. So today, we're gonna test this idea and present the risks of your down gear getting wet. Jackets like this Decathlon MT100 jacket and sleeping bags, and how serious it is. So if your jacket does end up in the water, what does that mean? So when you're out on a backpacking trip, there are 4 very realistic scenarios that can take place that can get your down insulation wet and compromise its ability to keep you warm and provide that insulation value. Number 1 is it can rain, and rain can present itself as a problem in many different ways. Number 2 is your backpack filling with water, falling into a body of water, getting wet when it's not on your back. Number 3 is sweating. If I am out hiking with my down jacket on, I am using a piece that is not designed to breathe super well. So I'm gonna get very clammy, sweaty, and I can get things wet from the inside out. And number 4 is condensation. Inside of your tent is primarily where that is going to apply. Okay, so now your gear is wet and you've had one or more of these scenarios take place. And you're asking yourself, like, how serious is this? How dangerous of a situation am I in? And I think it comes down to many different variables that you have to consider, that you have to start asking yourself questions around. And those variables might be the time of day, the season, your location, what elevation you are at, what the current temperature is, what the weather currently as well as the future weather is going to be like, and how compromised is my insulation as well. And if you're looking at those situations, those different variables, and saying to yourself, well, I don't know that I'm going to be able to dry my gear out. I know that I'm not going to sleep warm. It's going to be freezing temperatures. You start going through this thought process. That is where you start making the decisions that are going to determine whether or not you bail on the trip and head home, or you make other decisions that make it possible for you to survive in a way and keep yourself safe, or you just kind of go with it and see what happens. So an easy example to present would be a hot summer day. You end up with your backpack falling into the water. It was open, it took on a bunch of water, and now everything in your pack is soaking wet. But it happened in the morning, and you've got a hot, sunny day ahead of you. It's really easy to then stop for lunch, pull everything out, lay it out on the ground, and maybe you don't hike as many miles that day, but that hot sun allows for you to dry everything out. But let's present a scenario that could be a bit more difficult to manage. Let's say it's October and you plan a trip and you head out and you end up walking through a rainstorm that wasn't in the forecast, so it was totally unexpected, and you chose to not use a pack liner to line your pack. And then it rains for a good amount of time, soaks through the shoulder straps, for example, and then you end up with a wet down jacket and wet sleeping bag. Temperatures at night are going to get into the low 20s. It's going to be cold, and you're now like 5 miles from the car. What decisions do you start to make once you realize that what I rely on to keep me warm and safe in cold temperatures is now compromised and is not going to work for me? Because the real thing that can take place here is a likelihood of hypothermia. Getting hypothermic is something that can happen way faster and be an issue much easier than you think can happen. And if you've ever been in a situation where you have become hypothermic, that is a scary, scary position to be in. And it messes with your ability to make smart decisions. You are managing a totally different situation in that point. So yeah, you have to be mindful of how you take care of your down insulation and making sure that it's protected and understanding the conditions that you're going to be out in, because if you're not managing that, then you're just opening up yourself for an opportunity for something bad to happen and to really not have a good experience when you're out on the trail. So the key here has to do with prevention, right? So you've got prevention techniques in place to make sure that you are protecting those key items that are designed to keep you warm and dry and safe in colder temperatures so that you can enjoy yourself in the backcountry, but then also have a really smart and detailed risk management plan so that if something does happen where your insulation gets wet, you can then act on your risk management plan, your contingency plans, and make decisions based off of those. Maybe that is as simple as, if this happens, I'm gonna bail and I'm gonna call it quits and not try to fight my way through this really unfun situation. Now, I'm not trying to fearmonger or put any of these scary situations into your mind as this is how you're gonna die in the backcountry. That's not the point. I'm just trying to share this idea or the concept that these are realistic things that can happen in the backcountry. And as we're moving into the shoulder season, these are things that you need to pay attention to. So there's some simple prevention things that you can apply to your backpacking trips that are gonna help you manage this basically being avoided as something that can happen while you're out on a trip. The first is gonna be using a pack liner. Pack liners seriously make a huge difference in just protecting your gear from getting wet. This can be the difference in whether or not your trip continues or it ends because you had unexpected rain and your stuff got wet, but this protected you and now you were able to continue with your trip. This is a Nylaflume pack liner that is under $3. So super cost effective and very effective in its use. The next is gonna be using dry bags. So if you're not using a pack liner, you can use different types of dry bags to put your insulation into that is going to protect it from getting wet. The third, which is something that is less common, but it is also very effective, but that is treating your down products with a downproof from Nikwax. So now, for the sake of doing some simple science, because science is cool, right? We're gonna do some submersion of these insulation pieces to see how quickly they take on water and how big of an issue that clumping is and how fast it happens. This is the Torrid Apex from Enlighten Equipment. This is using an Apex synthetic insulation with it. So I dunk this in the water. What am I gonna see with that insulation getting wet in there? Is it gonna still loft up? Holy cow. Dude, this jacket, look at this. Look at this. Man, there's so much water in that. I wouldn't trust this to not take on water the second that you put it on and it starts raining. That's crazy. So let's move on to the Decathlon MT100 down jacket. Whoa. Okay. Not as much as the Torrid Apex. Took on water in the pockets, but it's not like what it was on the Torrid down in the body as well as in the sleeves. Now it has started to clump in these areas, but that was a lot of water. So that might be a little bit easier to dry than some other options. So in conclusion here, I think it's just really important to be mindful of these scenarios that can realistically take place when you're out in the backcountry, and to be more focused on the prevention side of things to make it so that you don't have to manage those kinds of situations when you're out in the backcountry to the best of your ability. Unexpected things can happen and you can find yourself in scenarios that, as much as you try to prevent it, it can still take place. But maybe you've got some better tools now that will help you manage those things if they do happen to take place. We also benefit a lot from just technical fabrics, outdoor fabrics being developed to a point that they are protecting our gear more than ever in the past. Having down that is also treated to help prevent it from taking on water and clumping up is also something that can be of a benefit. So it's nice to have those technologies, but they should not be viewed as a fail-safe or relied on that I shouldn't have to use dry bags or a pack liner because my sleeping bag has treated down in it. Prevent it from happening in the first place and let that be a secondary protection against condensation, etc., etc. Hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was educational and helpful. And thanks for watching today. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. Have an awesome day. See you later.